Hello, Internet, and welcome back to Antiheroes Anonymous, or welcome for the first time if it's your first time joining us. I'm Ethan, and I'm the Dungeon Master for this 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons show. I will have some announcements and a recap for all of you, but before we dive into any of that, Nick, would you go ahead and start off some player introductions?
Sure. Hi, I'm Nick. I play Ember's Void Ash, the Tabaxi Sun Soul Monk.
Hi, I'm Kay, and I play Lady Elwyn Amalos, who is a elvish Circle of the Land druid.
Hello, I'm Melissa, and I play Charm, who is a Thrygreen Swarm Keeper Ranger.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, I'm Zach, and I play Vert, the Changeling Armorer Artificer.
You messed that up on purpose. Okay.
Thank
Thank you, everyone. Those announcements I mentioned. First of all, we premiere our episodes on Mondays on YouTube at 7 p.m. Pacific time. Throughout the show, we use a variety of custom items, custom lineages, custom monsters, all that jazz, so be aware of that as you're watching. The character portraits were drawn by a variety of artists whose information you can find down in the description. If you need a refresher on anything that is going on in this campaign, we have a campaign wiki at World Anvil, and the page titled The Story So Far is up to date, so you can check that out and get caught up quick. You can also check the video description for links and information about various things, including some links to Black Lives Matter and Stop Asian Hate resources. Other than that, we just hope... I skipped one. Other than that, you can follow us on Twitter at Antiheroes Anon, and we just hope you enjoy the show, share with your friends, and come back to watch some more. Before I get more tongue-tied, let's roll the intro video. And welcome back. Previously on Antiheroes Anonymous, the Silver Seekers have come to the Underdark city of Erudition, where they hope to find the trail of Elwyn's missing mother. Before that, however, they must first stop the city from being torn apart by the eroding winds of a primal nexus. After a few setbacks, the Erudite Collective has almost completed an apparatus to get the Seekers to the nexus below, where Cephalosk of the League of Terrors awaits. And he may or may not have one tentacle. Inside joke. Until then, the party decides to attend a public forum on the question of permitting deity worship within the city limits, where advocate Shava De Veer has requested their testimony in support of her case, which Shava now stands ready to present. And so we pick up today's session. The party is actually split at the moment. Vert is currently back at the Ingenuity Spire of the city, which is comprised of these giant stalactites, city-sized stalactites. And Vert is working with the artificers and alchemists there to prepare this apparatus for descending into the chasm. Meanwhile, Elwyn, Embers, and Charm have gone to the center spire, the biggest spire of the city, which is Independence, in order to attend this public forum. So, I think I mentioned last session that Vert, after your friends had left and you'd kind of settled into work, you began to feel the sort of familiar rumbling in the back of your mind that usually indicates
Yes.
your unseen passenger Nyadon wants to speak. So we'll start with you.
Okay.
What are you doing to, like, what are you doing as you start to feel this rumbling?
I think at this point, probably like Night Mantis and I have probably just finished speaking, and I'm probably in the one of the hallways, like walking back to one of the workstations, and kind of just like thinking of the next task and kind of like mulling over what Night Mantis and I were talking about.
Yeah, and you just hear, or really more feel than hear, the low in the back of your mind.
And then, so I'll just like, I probably just like stop and just think, yeah, something on my mind, Nyadon?
I have been thinking long and hard since our encounter with the Nexus under Twin Towns.
What of it? Nyadon pulls up his notes.
There's like there's a little bit more rumbling. Like he's trying to put together words, while also like trying to think of the best way to approach or to explain what he's been thinking about. And yeah, you can sense that like even these Nexus things are even beyond his depth, right? Ancient being that he may be. And he finally says, I don't know much about these Nexuses or the Guardians of Vogma your sister claims they are related to. They are from a time far distant even to me. But I was in Vogma, in your father's study, long enough to learn something of the controllers.
I think Bert's ears perk up, even though they're having a telepathic conversation, and he's oh, really?
Not much. It was guarded, even to me. But what I do know is the reason why dedicated individuals had to be selected for the role. My understanding is that being in control of such incredible power required a constant assertion of will, an everlasting outpouring of one's power. Otherwise, they would be overwhelmed.
Outpouring of power. What does that mean exactly?
Having seen these nexuses and heard your sister's findings from the erudition scholars, it seems these points are connections to planes beyond. Vast, entire planes filled with power elemental, primordial energy, ancient and overwhelming.
Oh, so you're saying the planes are just constantly producing
pushing
this...
against the controllers.
I see.
And if the controllers' will bends, they were lost to the tide.
I see.
Your sister's plan is a good one, however. Having the power of these guardians, or a guardian, could we harness the power of this nexus, would be a great benefit to our cause, don't you think? Sorry, I just realized I never put up music. Let me grab some music.
Forgot to share the Vert song as well. I'll get that next time.
That's okay.
I guess it's a Nyadon song. Let's do that one, yeah. So, is the oppressive energy that's coming, that's pushing against the controller, is it more of a mental burden from what you understand, or is it a like
Nyadon rumbles for a few moments, like as you can sense him thinking and scanning back through who knows how many years of memory. And finally he says, my understanding of it is that it is a matter of willpower. Strength of mind.
So if you and I were to try and assume the role of a controller, would that work like that? Would it be both of us together if we tried to put ourselves in that position?
I do not know, but I fear if you were to attempt to take this on yourself, it would neutralize some of your greatest strengths, as you would have to devote time and energy on a constant basis to controlling this.
See. Yeah, I guess with this in mind, maybe we can think about it a little bit more once we actually see this Nexus Below Erudition.
Yeah, Nyadon rumbles a bit more, but this time it doesn't feel like he's thinking so much as like he's trying to decide whether to say something. And finally he says, I think the solution is easier than we might think.
Uh-huh.
We need this power if we are going to stand up to forces strong as the Empire. Both of us need this power. I would volunteer my will on a constant basis to control this for you.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of what I was considering when I asked that question earlier, is if we could volunteer part of each other, or myself, or just you. So that makes sense. We can try that. We can think about that.
Yeah, there's another rumbling, but again, this one doesn't seem like thought. In fact, it feels like almost like elation, or like yeah, there's just he's very pleased to hear that you agree.
Can I roll insight on him?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can I guidance myself too?
I don't think you can.
Okay,
I mean, normally
that's
you
okay.
could, but
I didn't even need it. I mean, maybe I did. I got a 21.
well, what are you trying to figure out exactly?
So I want to figure out if I sense that he is looking out for himself or looking out for both of us. Like if he's only seeking his best interests, or if it really is our best interests.
Mm-hmm. In that moment of Nyadon's elation, and you attempting to pierce the connection, to sense intention and sort of peek behind the veil, your mind slips past a mere telepathic connection with this being in your head, and you see something for a moment.
Okay.
Thought, memory, desire, unclear. But what you see... Let me decide what part of this I want to show you. Hold on. You see a secluded, wooded area surrounded by mountains. And you feel yourself at peace in this place that you sense is home. It's quiet. It's isolated. It's safe. No one is here to bother you. And that peace then is shattered. You don't see the specific moment where it's shattered, but in sort of this metaphorical vision that you're seeing, you feel it being shattered as to your vision, it looks like one by one the trees around you start to burst up in flame, and someone stands in the middle of the clearing, the first person to disrupt your solitude in a long time. And he stands there with a bloodied glaive, and you see the Emperor Stratos standing there. He strides towards you. I should mention, as you see him here, he's not as you saw him before. Before you saw him clad in armor and with a crown on his head. Here he is more of what you saw in Arlo the Magnificent's memory. He's the warrior. He's got, the powerful muscles, with kind of like the warrior's garb and the confident look in his eye. But he is here for blood. And the forest, your peaceful home, burns around him. And that's what you see as he strides forward. And then it stops.
Okay.
You almost feel like you were... Nyadon noticed that you had slipped beyond some barrier, and you felt him push against you.
I see.
Throw you out of this vision, whatever it was.
Yeah, so I think, as that occurs, Vert probably kind of stumbles into, a wall that he was in the hallway that he's in, and kind of just, leans against the hallway and is, thinking hard about this. But then as he gets pushed out, he just kind of, just considers how, what that means, I guess, and, what their history really is. But, I mean, it kind of makes sense based off what he told me, if that's a true memory, and that maybe one of the reasons why he stands against me against the Emperor. Yeah. So,
as you're leaning up against the wall there, you do hear Nyadon in your head say, "What did you see? What did you take?"
What did I take? I don't know what you mean by taking something. I thought maybe a memory of you or something. I'm not sure.
That was not for you.
Well, I mean, I don't really have control of these things either, so...
There's that angry rumble, and then it kind of lapses into silence.
Okay. Just brain things, who knows? So I'll just kind of consider that while I'm then continue my pace over to, I guess, where Mr. Forge Fury is. Start talking with him and seeing what we should do and kind of make plans and stuff.
Okay. We can come back to you in a little bit.
Sure.
We'll swap over to the other party. And I'm sorry to say, Zach, but I think probably there will be more time on the rest of the party.
Oh, I anticipated that. It's no problem. I'm very excited to hear
we
the
will pop
debate.
back over to you. We will.
No worries.
So the group of you had just arrived in Independence, and you see Charm kind of walking your direction with Shava Devir in tow. Shava is dressed in like a golden dress, it seems. That kind of matches the golden streak that she has in her hair. That now signifies that she is an advocate for the ongoing debate. And she comes over with Charm and greets the group of you. "Hello. Your friend fetched me, and I take that to mean that things went well over with the collective?
Pretty good. Is Elwyn still in spider form?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, Elwyn, who is in spider form, probably lets the last of the scholars off of her back before transforming back into herself and kind of giving a little curtsy to Shava. Sorry, we're a little late. We were bringing some people over from Integrity. I'm sure Charm has told you. We could
No.
only manage to bring over about 25 people.
You're not late at all, and even just a few more people over here to hear the debate itself is excellent. I spoke with the Ancient Mother, and I managed to convince her to allow us to have our forum,
Okay.
even though the entire city is not able to attend at the moment. The plan, unfortunately, does require your cooperation a little more, if you're willing. We are hoping that we can have scribes take detailed notes of the arguments and then copy those for dissemination. But obviously that requires, and she kind of gives a guilty look towards Elwyn, someone to carry these notes to the other spires so that the people who are currently residing there can make their informed decisions.
Understood. Well, we do have a quite experienced note taker among us. She gestures towards Charm.
Oh,
Does a little bow.
well, we have scribes who are, it's their job, but certainly
yes,
if
I
you
can
want
help.
to help out.
She wiggles all her arms.
I'm more than happy to help out delivering these to the other spires, but we are not going to have a lot of time. We're planning to head down to investigate the winds tonight, if possible.
Oh, that is soon. I was wondering about that because if all goes well and I can convince the people of Erudition to side with me, well, our hope is to petition divine aid in hopes that something out there will help us evacuate the city, get these people to safety. I don't know what form that will take, but I had hoped you would be able to help with that as well. But if you intend to go down into the chasm before we even evacuate the city, that could be good as well. I don't know.
Well, let's take it one step at a time. See how
Sweet.
this forum shakes out.
We do our jobs right down there and no one will have to evacuate.
Yeah, hopefully it won't be too long-winded.
Yeah, she... Long-winded. She nods kind of slowly, but then almost like half to herself, but also to the group of you, says, I do worry, though, if something goes wrong down there, what effects it could have on the city up here.
Yes. That's our concern as well.
It'll probably be pretty bad. I expect the city will be destroyed if we fail.
Not just that, but my understanding is that we don't know much about this nexus, but what we do know is that it's incredibly powerful and ancient, and even if you don't fail, there are certainly situations where your attempts to shut it down or whatever you attempt to do could have consequences. Earthquakes that shake the city and cause the spires that are already weakened to fall, sudden bursts of winds that could have similar effects. I don't know. I have no way of predicting what could happen, but even if you succeed, there's potential for disaster for the city.
We're
I think we'll just
going
have
to
to
do
be
everything
careful.
we can to keep the city safe. That's why we're here.
Rhyme is very good at what she does. I'm not really worried about success.
All right. Well, while you're doing that, while you're getting while you're using whatever means you have to get down to the chasm, I suppose that, well, assuming all goes well at the forum, I will do my best to get the people evacuated. So rest at ease, I suppose, knowing that someone up here is going to be trying to get the people out, just in case.
Thank you. Is there anything else we can do to help prepare for the forum?
Well, she pulls out, she has, a satchel with like books and notes in it, and she pulls out like a personal notebook and kind of flips through it. I think I'm about as prepared as I can be. I was telling your friend Charm here that there is a part in the forum where, those viewing are encouraged to speak their minds on the matter, and the advocates are allowed, a quick rebuttal to points made during this section, but I fear most of the crowd will have things to say in my opposition, and very few will have things to say in my support. So, if you might allow me to make a plea, if any of you have things that you could say during the forum at this time, it would be greatly appreciated.
I don't think you want me speaking on your behalf.
Oh, yes, and she kind of holds up the thing you already wrote. Of course, your friend Embers of White Ash has already filled out her testimony, which we plan to have read, of course. So if you don't feel comfortable with the public speaking, that is also an avenue you could take. Thank you, by the way, Embers, and she gives you kind of a low bow.
I had hoped to watch from the sidelines and not really participate, but...
Well, that's a shame. I have a feeling testimony from you would have carried great weight.
Yes, well, I don't feel like I'm in a place to speak to the people, but we'll see how things go.
She's, like I said, she's kind of very tall and willowy, and so she reaches one of her slightly too long arms towards you, Elwyn, as if to kind of put it on your shoulder. Would you allow her to do that?
Yeah. Yeah.
She puts a hand on your shoulder and kind of brings her face, up in front of yours, kind of to look you in the eyes, and says, I might be able to put your mind or conscience, there we go, there's the word, to ease just a little bit, if you'd allow me.
What do you mean?
I have information from a certain individual we both know. I happen to know who your mother is. Elantari the Wanderer?
Yes?
I never met her myself, so I can't give personal testimony, but my understanding from everything I've learned of her time that she spent here in Erudition, it was her goal, her deepest desire to see the Drow, all of us, unified again. Well, those of us here in Erudition, those of us in our sister city, Lumera, and even those in the Deep Dark. I think she wanted us to eventually come together again with our brothers and sisters on the surface. I see the work that I'm doing here as somewhat of a spiritual successor to the things that she did and spoke of while she was in the city. I think this is something she would want very much.
Thank you. I imagine she would have wanted this too. Based on what little I do know about her.
Yeah, Shava just kind of gives a little smile and another nod. And then she takes her arm off your shoulder and kind of folds her arms and says, obviously I can't force you to speak up and say anything, but your connection to this place through your mother would mean something if you spoke.
I understand. Well, I reckon we better find a place to sit and watch this thing, huh? She looks over at her companions.
It'll probably take a little bit for everyone to get assembled, but as my understanding is that word is getting disseminated to the people of the Spire, so
Well, then
yes,
we
it wouldn't
better
hurt.
get good seats quickly.
Okay, so the group of you begin to head over towards the center of Independence Spire, which is where this big central, like an audience chamber, has been carved out of the stone and the amethyst geode. And there are... I can't remember how big the population of this entire city is, but I want to say it's in the thousands. So there's like thousands of seats here. There's room enough for everyone in the city to come and get a seat in this audience chamber. And it's all kind of sloped downwards towards a central area where you can see basically two speaking pedestals have been set up, and you can see Advocate Tasir. What is her last name?
So many names.
No, Tasir is the last name. Advocate Ephiril Tasir, with her kind of spider-like lower half. You can see that they've got like kind of like gold bracelets around each of the 8 spider-like legs, and like Shava, the clothing on the upper half of the body it's all very gold, and it accentuates the the gold hair stripe as well. So
I think Embers would just like poke Elwyn and say, "Did they have those where you were from too?"
What?
The spider people.
Oh, no.
No?
No.
Those aren't a common drow thing.
Well, I'm sure that there are plenty of other creatures like that in drow settlements. My city is not a drow city. It's
Sorry.
yeah. It's all right. There aren't actually many drow where I'm from. Some of them, a handful, but mostly other kinds of elves, high elves, and wild elves. My father is the former.
Mm-hmm. Mischief just sits there awkwardly.
You can pretty much get seats anywhere you want because there's nowhere near enough people in the spire to fill all of the seats, though the ones closer to the podium seem to be filling up already.
Well, are you a sit in the front or a sit in the back kind of person?
I feel like back would be good.
All right.
What do you
agree.
think?
I agree. It'll give us a good view of the rest of the population. How far is it from like the podium to like the back row of seats? Is it like hundreds of feet, or is it?
I mean, it would to fit the entire population. I mean, it'd have to be like,
You're talking about
like
like a baseball stadium.
yeah, at
size
least
here,
like baseball, football stadium sized place. So
Well,
Yeah, but we needed to make a quick escape, so
do you think you reckon we'll need to make a quick escape?
if this drone's on forever,
Well, I'd like to be close enough to have a good view and not be
And
out of earshot or
a short
maybe-
walk in case you need to speak.
right. Close enough to really be able to read the speakers, you know?
Hmm. Yeah, we
Get a
could
good
sit a
look
little
at their
closer
faces. If
than the
that's all
absolute
right.
back.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. If we're within 30 feet, that would be like front row, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that'd be like front row. Which you could snag front row seats if you want.
Yeah.
They're dwindling, but there's still ones available.
Yeah, do you mind? I'm sorry. I already said I'm okay with the back, but I think we should be up there.
All right.
Thanks.
You find some seats pretty close to the front. And not long after you've been seated, a drow, like a male drow figure comes up. He has a streak of purple in the hair as well. And I don't have a name for this. It's not an important character, but he introduces himself and he says that Shava sent him here to act as your interpreter. He says that in common.
Oh?
Yes, most people within the city speak Undercommon, so that is what the debate will be held in.
Oh. Well, I say in Undercommon, thank you.
Oh, is it perhaps that you do not need an interpreter?
Well,
I am happy to go away.
I myself
I
am
will
fluent.
need an interpreter.
We'd be happy for your services. Thank you.
Okay, then you have them.
Charm
it was-
telepathically says, hello.
Oh, that is quite alarming. Yeah,
I like this guy. Is this Dickory?
Yes. I need a drow last name, but this. Hold on.
Dickory with a Y instead of an I.
And a few apostrophes.
And a few
Yeah.
apostrophes.
Last name. This is Dickory. Dryalis.
Yes.
Yep. It's pronounced Dickorai, actually.
He sounds like a Dickorai Tyralis.
Dickorai Dryalis. Yes, that is my name. Yeah, no, he will just kind of take a seat slightly behind you so that he can kind of quietly speak into your ears, all of your ears, without disrupting the others around.
Okay.
Great.
Let's see. The other thing that happens as people begin to fill into this chamber is that you see this person arrives not really with any fanfare, but when they do arrive, it's like there's a hush to the auditorium. And you see some people making like gestures of respect, as basically what happens is an open-topped palanquin arrives, carried by 4 drow. The drow who are carrying this palanquin are all robed in white, and the individual who is sitting on top of the palanquin, which has kind of like cushioned seating on top of it, is so covered in like long flowing white veils that their entire face and body is pretty much obscured. But what you can make out, it seems to be the form of probably like an incredibly old woman, but just draped in white veils and robes and carried into the auditorium on this palanquin and she's brought up to kind of a special box section that overlooks the entire stadium. And you can see that as her palanquin bearers settle her into this box, both of the advocates turn towards the box and give a long, low bow that they hold for close to a minute before they, stand up and return to their preparations.
Does the rest of the what's the word? Audience also do the same thing?
You see, some bows, some other, signs of respect. Like it wouldn't be like a salute or anything like that, but
So, are people getting up out of their chairs so that they can bow?
yeah, some would. It's not like all of them do uniformly,
Okay.
but some do, certainly.
I just wanted to, copy whatever gestures of respect or reverence the people around us are doing.
Okay. Your interpreter will kind of whisper to you. You probably picked up on this, but that is the Ancient Mother herself. She comes to preside over these proceedings.
Must be a special moment indeed to have her come.
Well, she attends most of our forums. She does not speak much, but she attends. It is not her place to speak here. It is for the advocates to make their cases.
I see.
And with that, it seems like people have stopped trickling into the auditorium, and a tense hush seems to fall over the people as both of the advocates in the center of the room finish putting their notes and things in order on their podiums, turn towards each other, walk across to each other's podiums, and kind of clasp hands in a firm handshake accompanied by a bow. You can't hear what they say, but you can see that they exchange a little bit of, it looks like it might be banter, before they both walk back to their podiums. And after a long sort of pregnant silence, the public forum commences. But before that, let's just hop back over to Vert, just briefly.
Sure.
I see you trying to time the music to the scene. Good job.
It just kind of worked out. It wasn't something I was planning on.
I see you.
Yeah. Vert,
Yeah.
you had mentioned wanting to work on some improvements or upgrades for this apparatus.
Mm-hmm.
What did you have in mind?
Well, these are going to be... Are these meant for a return journey?
Theoretically.
Yeah? Okay. So we're trying to descend and then ascend back up using these vehicles.
Yeah, assuming they don't get too damaged or anything
So
like that.
it'd be nice to have some storage space for repair kit stuff and tools.
Mm.
So if something does get damaged on one of the however many that are going down, then we can maybe fix some little things. Was the visibility also okay when I was test driving it with Mr. Forge Fury?
Yeah, Kremek would have shown you. I don't have the stat block for the item in front of me, but I think one of the levers you can throw opens or closes some windows in the front. And then another set of levers opens and closes windows along the sides.
Yeah. And they're just shutters, right? I'm guessing? Or are they okay. So if we open it, then we're vulnerable to small debris.
Mm-hmm.
Probably? Okay.
Yeah, so you could think about it as when they're open, it's 3/4 cover. When they're closed, it's total cover.
I see. So I'm guessing we don't have any...
The openings are big enough that you could take actions out of the windows if you wanted to.
Okay.
But they're not so big that like the whole side is wide open or anything like that.
Okay. And then is there means of like lights and stuff too? Is that something that...
Yes, one of the levers, I believe, turns on some floodlights on the front of the machine.
Okay, let me just pull it up here. Here. We have floodlights, we have windows. So yeah, repair kit thing. And then... I mean, I didn't really think of much as far as improvements. It seems like it's going to be worthy of the mission that we're taking with it so far.
Cup holders.
Oh, cup holders. Yeah.
Cup holders were mentioned. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, really?
Okay.
Sure.
Well,
I mean, I can think a little bit more about it while the forum is going on, but
yeah, that's okay. But we can work on the repair kit thing first.
sure.
When you bring that up to Kramik, he says, "Well, you know, I did think about this, but it's already bearing so much weight, you see. Two people having to cling to the walls. The formula really isn't rated for too much more weight than it's already forced to bear. If you can find a solution to that, then we can make it work."
Hmm. Okay, I can think about that.
Well,
So, like,
you don't have to think about that. If you want to, you can make a like a tools check. So intelligence plus your proficiency.
okay.
I don't need you to give me like an actual engineering solution. Though I
was
don't doubt
about
you
to.
could.
I was about to.
We're gonna be here all night.
Let me write a white paper on this. That's pretty good. 17 plus, you said intelligence plus proficiency?
Proficiency. Yep.
So that's a 24.
24. Okay. Yeah. Whatever your solution ends up being, you find a way to kind of cut back on the
So,
weight of some of the other systems.
yeah.
Okay.
I was going to say lightening up the other systems to free up the weight is kind of what the shorthand would be, I think, of my solution.
Yeah. And you find ways to basically build in a little compartment in the floor of the apparatus that can hold some basic repair tools.
Tools and spares things, yeah.
I'll try to remember to add it to the stat block, but if I forget, just remember, I think what I'll do is, because this thing can have mishaps if it takes too much damage, and those mishaps require repairs. So I think I would give you a limited number of basically advantage rolls on repairs.
Okay.
Which I will either write on the stat block or come up. I'll write it up somehow for you by the time you need it.
So, and then the other thing I had was one of the levers, it can like release a filament. And so I think it'd be helpful if the claws could also extend and retract in such a way, like a grappling hook, if that's possible as well. So it could like pull itself if it needs to. Extra mobility in some way.
Oh, I see.
Instead of the filament, because I think the filament it pulls something to it. But it'd be good if we could do both ways. Or maybe the filament can do that too. But
yeah, it's possible. Yeah. That can be another thing that you work on. So if you want to do another intelligence plus proficiency check.
Okay.
We'll see what you come up with.
Not as good, but that is still a 17.
17's pretty good. Yeah, you think like the filament itself, I suppose it's less of a filament and it's more of like a cable, you know, that has this sticky compound secreted onto it, right? You think that maybe if you changed up the material of the cable, you might be able to kind of use the cable for both, the filament for both purposes, right? So if
Okay.
something was like smaller and less weight than the apparatus, you could pull it to you, but maybe you could then instead latch the filament to the wall and then, pull yourself up or something like that. Since the wall would be heavier, more sturdy than the apparatus itself.
Sure. Okay. And yeah, that sounds good. And that's something that I can just work on during the day, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, like I said last time, you pretty much got the group of you got the project back on track. So pretty much everything you're doing now is upgrades.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, then you can work on that for a little bit.
I will.
Okay. Time has come, everyone.
So excited.
Oh, this is not at all right. What did I pick this song? This is not right. Hold on.
Time has almost come.
This one? Nope. I can't remember what any of these songs are until I hear them. That's not right either. We'll just go back to what we had before.
I feel like we
That
need
was
the
working.
Chrono Trigger soundtrack for the judge area.
Oh, the trial.
The trial. Yeah.
Before I dive into things, do the group of you have any things you want to talk about sort of before the hush settles onto the stadium?
I mean, I think Ellen's probably super introspective at this point. She's just kind of looking around and trying to get a read of the room, but mainly just in her own head. So unless you guys have anything you want to talk to her about,
Well, if
she's
you're
not
trying to
gonna
get a
start
read on the
anything.
room, you can roll an insight check if you want.
Yes, please. Ooh. Hey, I'm really good at insight, you guys. 24.
That's really good.
Mm-hmm.
You're looking around at the people in the seats filling this auditorium, mostly drow, but some of those mushroom people you saw before, some
Oh, yeah.
fish-looking people, a couple of the drow with the lower half spider legs as well. Not very many, but a few. The common denominator among almost every face you look into is fear, anxiety, worry. This is people who are afraid for their safety, for their futures, for their well-being, for their family, friends. And they know that a lot hinges on this moment. The other thing I think you pick up on is even amongst those who are, showing fear and anxiety, a lot of them are also exhibiting, measures of, like resoluteness. They look determined, like afraid, but
Yeah.
resolute.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
If there's time also before the forum gets underway, I think Embers would want to make just like one circuit of the whole assembly hall.
Mm-hmm.
And just check for signs of the League or these like weird eye creatures, because it seems like this could be an important thing that could save the city, and that seems like something the League might want to disrupt, the way that they disrupted the lab. So
That's entirely possible.
If you tell me
Um,
you're planning to do this, I'll cast guidance on you before you leave.
yeah, I think I'd say I'm just gonna have a look around, make for signs of trouble before we start.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay,
Embers, you
so-
take
Good luck.
this half of the room. I'll take the other half of the room.
Oh, okay. Are we helping here along with guidance?
Yeah.
All right, I'll roll the advantage and a d4.
Didn't you give Charm a inspiration as well
Charm does have
for
inspiration,
last? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
but Embers rolled a 27.
Nice.
Okay. Yeah, so you kind of take off in one direction, Charm takes off in the other direction. You look carefully around, the edges of the stadium, at the people filling the stadium.
I look up too. I mean, you never know.
Basically alert for anything, that seems out of the ordinary. And it is, you don't spot any of those strange creatures that you saw floating in the jar in the Erudite Collective. You don't see any signs of like serpent people in cloaks trying to not be seen. It's when you look up, though, that you notice something that is a little bit disconcerting. Near the high ceiling of this chamber, which you take to be kind of the connection point between the stalactite and the ceiling, you spot cracks, breaks in the rock. This may be the biggest and most sturdy of the stalactites, but even it is in dire danger at the moment.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'd not seeing anything else with that. I'd just take my seat and point out the cracks to Elwyn and Charm and say we really got to go tonight.
Yeah. Yeah, we do.
Okay. Then with that, the advocates begin to speak. They launch into a back and forth debate. One of them will raise a point, another will counter it. Sometimes a point goes uncountered, but by some sort of understanding of the dance of how this is supposed to proceed, the opponent knows, okay, it's my turn to speak, and change the flow of the conversation. They bring up quotes from historians, philosophers, scientists, scholars of religion, all manner of sources. To name a few arguments that are presented, I have quite a few, actually.
Yes, this is what I want.
And the group of you can feel free to, I'll just say this before I start talking for a very long time. Feel free to interject and say, I want to get the crowd's read on this, or like, I want to do an insight check on Shava or Advocate to Seer at this point. Or if you want to discuss one of the points that is brought up with each other, feel free to interject that, because this debate goes on for a long time. So even though I'm going to be listing points as a list, there's bits of conversation in between each of these. So there's room for you to have. Yeah.
Sorry, just a quick question. So the premise of this entire thing, just to kind of rephrase it for the audience, because we haven't talked about it in a little bit, but it's mainly just to discuss whether to accept divine intervention to aid the city for evacuation or not. Is that really like the underlying?
Well, yeah, as the people who are there start to listen to the beginnings of this debate, they pick up on, there's a couple factors being discussed. One of the major ones is divine worship, practicing of divine faith and divine magic is currently outlawed in the city. So the first and foremost point of the debate is whether or not to change that law, right? To allow it. The second part is, like you said, if we do we ask for divine intervention as a means out of our situation? And then I think the third part is kind of, if we do that, who do we ask and how? But sort of the most hotly debated part is that first one, right? But yeah, like I said, if at any point I say something you want to have a conversation with each other about, or get a read on someone, feel free to interject. Right. One of the things that Shava mentions, one of the first points that seems to kind of win one over on Advocate to Seer, She mentions, though we did not know it, erudition has benefited from divine protection since the city's inception. Without the divine seal, as we understand it now, that was placed on the primal nexus below the city itself, it would not even have been possible for us to settle here. Furthermore, some histories even indicate that the masked lady who fought and killed Seldafane to save erudition's people was a god herself. And the only rebuttal that Advocate Tasir can offer to that is that those claims of this masked lady's divinity are unsubstantiated and thus not a valid point of argument for this. Advocate Tasir then kind of switches topics and says, claims how the city's desperate situation puts its people in a weak position if they were to, attempt to open up bargaining with a deity. But Shava counters with a quote from a philosopher that boils down to the power of the gods actually comes directly from the amount of believers they have and the fervor of those believers. So without that, the gods are actually powerless to act in the world. So in that sense, the power in the relationship is truly held by the mortal believers. And they kind of go back and forth on that topic for a little bit.
Yeah, I think Embers would talk to Elwyn a little bit about this and ask, is it weird that they all seem to understand divinity as this very transactional thing? I mean, you have a closer connection with your goddess than I do, but it never really feels like the masked lady wants anything from you in return for what she gives. Is that true?
It's funny you asked me that because I had a conversation with Rhyme about that a long time ago. I don't think it's transactional, but there is give and take to any relationship, whether it's divine or otherwise. She gives me my power, and I'm doing what I can to help her too. She just hasn't told me what she wants yet.
They all seem very worried that they're going to be incurring some kind of debt if they ask for help.
I know, but given their history, maybe it makes sense for them to be cautious.
I guess.
They then actually do start to talk about that very history. It seems like this is a point in the argument that Advocate Tasir has poured a lot of, sources and energy into. And she says, there are numerous examples of harmful relationships with deities throughout our history which prove that they cannot be trusted with the people's devotion. Lolth betrayed Coralon and her own sisters, then created an oppressive society in the Deep Dark, which we were then forced to flee. And when we did, she cursed us with this, and she gestures towards her body, in childish retaliation. And then Shaba kind of offers a little bit of a rebuttal there, but it's kind of weak compared to what Advocate Tasir is saying, and Advocate Tasir goes on. When Erudition's founders followed Lolth's son Seldafane, they believed that he would lead them to safety and freedom, but he too turned on them. There is an Erudition parable, and she kind of speaks to the crowd here, that tells of the gods even creating monsters and allowing them to roam the land specifically to cause mortals to need them. And she goes on to cite a philosopher who believed that was the very reason why Lolth chose to settle in the Underdark, because of the dangers, and it created a need, a reason for her people to require her protection. By the time Advocate Devir, Shava is allowed kind of a moment to interject. She's kind of on the back foot, and her argument comes off a little bit weak, but she offers a couple examples of benevolent deities among surface religions, including a citation of Corellon's love for the elves as evidenced by how they helped the Sisters of the Moon prevent the material plane's tyrants from crossing into the Feywild. She also cites Cultivation's Altar in Amberhearth, assisting with the harvest and welfare initiatives in the city. Amberhearth being their closest, trade partner on the surface. Their really best connection to surface cultures. She spends a lot of time talking about that. But yeah, her entire argument in this section comes across like she's on the back foot a little bit.
I think Embers is leans into charm a little bit and says, "Hey, I know Advocate Seer. She's talking about this whole body being a curse thing, but is it me or is it also kind of hot?"
Well, me personally, with the forearms, I kind of like 8 legs too.
It'd be interesting, right?
Yeah.
La 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 la.
Spiders are they could eat you, Charm. They're spiders. They eat bugs.
That's what they want. Haven't you been
want.
paying attention?
Yeah. Yeah. I walked into that one.
Yeah.
As they continue kind of their history section of the debate, Shava mentions that the gods fought for the people of the world during the Dawn War, when the primordial titans wanted to eradicate, the people and kind of start over again with the world. The gods stepped in and fought to protect them. But Advocate Seer counters that the gods didn't even create the world. Instead, they stole it from the primordials themselves. They may have acted to protect, but it was in their own self-interest. This kind of goes on and on for quite a while. When I say quite a while, I mean they argue for hours, basically going back and forth and citing different points to each other. But you see, as you look around the crowd, the crowd is invested in this conversation. They're following the discussion with rapt attention. Some are even taking notes.
Does it seem like Advocate DeVere's assertion that she doesn't have many supporters among this crowd is true?
Roll an insight check.
Okay. Uh, 13.
It does seem more often as you're watching the crowd, whenever Advocate Seer makes a particularly strong point, you see more members of the crowd kind of subconsciously nodding along to the points. And when Advocate DeVere kind of makes counterpoints and things like that, you see more furrowed brows, slight shakes of the head. Yeah, it does seem like most of the audience is kind of pre-biased towards Advocate Seer's arguments. But eventually, they come to, and there's probably breaks and intermissions so that, people can stretch their legs, the advocates can kind of rearrange their strategy and things like that. But after several hours of this, they come to kind of a mutual closing. And you can see that both advocates kind of close books on their pedestals, and signify that they have finished their arguments. And you can see people from the crowd beginning to form lines down towards the center of the auditorium. And you can see Shava tenses as this happens.
Forming lines as in to give testimony or to...
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. There's no formal announcement, but it seems like the people are so used to this process that they know the advocates have closed their own arguments at this point, and they're leaving it to the people now to bring forth arguments.
Can I ask Dickorai something?
Yeah. Why is that his name?
You didn't name him.
No.
This is what happens.
Mhm.
Hey, how does someone win? How do we figure out which passes?
Has anyone explained to you the concept of the jurist?
Oh, I think people did talk to me about this.
It's a term that we use as a collective for the people of the city.
I see.
Well, I say the people of the city, but I mean the what's the word? The informed people of the city. The concept of informed is quite important for the jurist. If you cannot attend the forum, you must prove that you are knowledgeable on the subject before you are allowed to cast a vote. It usually takes the form of a test of some kind. And most people prefer to just attend the forum as their means of gaining the informed status. But anyways, I digress. The informed population, known as the jurist, casts a vote, and that is how we decide.
So even if, say, 80% of the people in the crowd here were against one side or the other, as long as all the jurists agreed with one side, or most of the jurists, then it wouldn't matter?
Well, everyone here who is in the crowd is a member of the jurist.
Oh. Embers looks and is like, how many people are in there in this crowd?
I mean, quite a few. Like I said, I can't remember what I said for the population of the city, but this is
like thousands.
It's a big chunk of the population of the city,
Okay.
since this is the biggest spire.
Yeah. Embers is slightly alarmed and dismayed to find this out, because she was just like, hey, maybe we can find some key figures to convince, but maybe goodness, it won't be that easy.
It is very much a vote of the people, but those people must be informed of the decision they are making. People, it seems like, as Shava predicted, pretty much everyone who offers testimony from the crowd is offering it against Shava, though a few people do offer it, in her favor, and their arguments tend to be things like, if we don't do this, we are doomed. This is our only path forward. What other path forward do we have? Pleas of desperation, essentially. Some of the arguments that are levied against Shava are naturally the one you've heard over and over again. Asking the gods for help opens the door for the gods to demand things in return. Shava rebuts those, citing scholars who study the psychology of human relationships, like that, or humanoid relationships, and those scholars say things like every relationship creates a window for someone to demand or request things, but what they don't do is dictate our choices. And she kind of digs in on that. She says, whether demands are made of us by a god, that doesn't mean we have no choice in how we respond. Our choices cannot be taken away from us. And we as a people will make strong choices. And that's the kind of argument that she pushes back with.
For the question about what's our path forward if we don't accept the power of the gods, do they just lean on the Spire of Innovation for their what they're trying to do, or is it something else?
Advocate to Seer cites.
Yeah, is the rebuttal to that more like we'll figure out a way, or is it more like we'd rather die?
It's that's what I was trying to decide, and I think it ends up being a little bit of both. Uh-huh. It's the people. So Advocate to Seer talks a lot about basically the general attitude of the people of erudition, the cultural attitude of and you start to pick up on this, they're very big on like self-improvement, right?
Mhm.
And so she talks about how, if they work together, if they push each other, they will improve. They will find a way, a means to overcome this by themselves. And if they don't, it's still preferable to the alternative. And she kind of dances around the concept of like the entire city dying by saying, if we don't, it's preferable to the alternative. But the meaning is there. Yep. Some other people will ask, if divine power were legalized, how would we regulate it? And you can see the few members of the Stoic Sentinels who are in the crowd kind of shift and get a little bit uncomfortable at that. They're recognizable, of course, by their kind of like carapace armor that they wear. Shava counters it with, the fact that this debate is centered on, whether we do or don't. And questions of regulation would be subject to future legislation. It's not important at the moment. What's important now is that we make a decision, a strong decision for our future, to secure that we have a future. And she kind of impresses that, the danger of the situation. Another argument that's pretty common from the public is, like I said, the kind of ethos of like continuous self-improvement. People argue that accepting help from the divine minimizes erudition's efforts to continually improve itself. We've come this far. What does it say if we take that big step backward? If we can't stand on our own without backsliding into the gods' waiting arms, what was that all for? That sort of argument. And Shava counters it with, continuous improvement requires interaction with others. It requires challenging relationships, pushing each other forward. What relationship could be more challenging to navigate? What relationship has the most opportunity for growth on our part than that between mortal and divine? It is perfect for creating such opportunities, and that's how she counters that one.
God. I don't think Embers knows enough about the history of divinity to say what I, the player, want to say. And she would also say it badly, so I'm not going to say it. But man, I can think of something I want to say here.
Is there a question you could ask your interpreter that could maybe give you a way to say what you want to say?
I don't know. Like, what I want to get at is, like, I, the player, know, because I played through all of Campaign 1, that, like, you can take self-improvement up to the level of becoming a deity. Like, the Sisters of the Moon did it. I just don't think Embers knows that, because that was some pretty secret stuff.
Yeah, it was. That's true.
Yeah, so I don't think there's anything I can do without metagaming here.
Wait,
That's
but
true.
didn't Embers roll like a nat 20 on a religion check recently about the Sisters of the Moon?
Actually, yeah, you did.
In a like recent episode?
I guess
You're
so.
an erudition?
The thing that was a big secret about the Sisters of the Moon was like the specifics of their ascension, like what it cost, the fact that something went wrong, right? That bit isn't quite public knowledge, but I think maybe...
Oh, the elven lore that Embers remembers was about Lolth and the 8 Moon Sisters. Oh, one of 8 elven sisters who ascended to godhood. Yep.
Yeah.
That was in episode 50.
I don't...
So you do know that.
Particularly with like the Raven Queen, that's a bit more common knowledge within like her religion. Yeah, so I think it's fair to say that Embers would know that much.
Yeah, I think Embers would lean over to Charm and say, like, this all... Are they forgetting that self-improvement can be taken pretty far? I mean, there'd be nothing stopping them from going all the way up to the level of D themselves. Because I don't want to say it. I don't want to make this argument, but I know that Charm was like, well, I don't have a god, so I'm trying to give Charm an argument to make if you want to give some testimony. There you go.
Well, Charm knows nothing about deities at all. I don't even know if there is one in the desert. Because we were all self-sufficient, so she's tending to agree with some of the people that are, yeah, we can do it by ourselves, because she's never known anything different.
Yeah, the only religious group that's in the desert that you would know of them kept to themselves, but violently defended their territory if it was infringed. And this would be the group you know to be called the Last Knights, with Knight with a K. You know of them, but not much about them beyond that.
Yeah, so, I mean, I know Shava wanted me to give testimony, but I don't think I could give anything that would help her cause either. The only thing I have witnessed is what happened when we first arrived in Erudition. That's the only thing I witnessed, and what would we have done if not for that?
Eventually, the arguments against Shava's points begin to taper off, and someone comes forward bearing a scroll or a paper that is recognizable as Ember's testimony, and they would read it out. But Nick, if you want to read what Ember's wrote, go ahead.
I don't.
Oh, fine. You'll make me read it?
Yep.
Okay. It's kind of weird, Embers, because you hear the words that you wrote, which have been translated into Undercommon and are now being interpreted back to you in Common. So it's not quite exactly as you wrote it by the time it reaches your ears. But bless them, they're doing their best. What those of you who can speak Undercommon hear is... and there's a little bit of an introduction before it's actually read. Whose testimony this is, why it's being read rather than entered by the person themselves, just all the background information. But when they finally start reading, they say, I have heard it said in my short time here in Erudition, from a member of the Stoic Sentinels, that there was never a deity who truly had the interest of mortals in mind. But I am devoted to the goddess Nusumni, and so I know that it is not. So I know that this is not true. She is not one of the better-known deities of Alen'dal, possibly because she is no longer with us. But what we do know of her is that it was mortals who turned her heart from evil, and love for mortals that led her to sacrifice herself to protect us from the depredations. Of her father Zahir. She turned her back on godkind and learned from a mortal cleric the ways of Pelor, whose ideals she upheld to the end of her life. It was supposedly a great poison that killed Nusumni. Let us not be similarly poisoned against those who would give us aid if given the chance. I am given to understand that the deity known as the Weaver is a contentious one here, and at that there's like a murmuring throughout the audience. But the person reads on, and possibly for good reason. I cannot speak to that. I know little of her faith myself, but I do know that the prime precept of Nusumni, my dead goddess, was to allow for clemency and forgiveness. Even the foulest and most wicked among us can change, as she showed through her example. In her name, I ask that you keep an open mind and a merciful mind, even for the Weaver. Thank you. The murmurs about the mention of the Weaver continue for a while. But then Advocate Tasir offers her rebuttal, which is actually like she seems a little bit caught off guard by this entry of testimony. So her rebuttal is not actually great. She just says, Newsomny is not a goddess who is known in erudition, and certainly not known to myself. But if what this testimony states is true and factual, then it does present an interesting exception to prior observations. However, the fact remains that erudition has no means to verify this claim at the moment, and frankly, the rhetoric of the testimony relies on appeals of hopeful idealism rather than scholarly virtues. And that's met with kind of skeptical murmurs from the crowd. They can sense that that's kind of like a bit of a weak rebuttal, like a non-rebuttal, really.
Can I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
So, are the facts known about our travel down to the source of the Nexus or whatever? Or were those presented today or anything? That our group is going down?
Not that your group specifically is going down, but I'm sure Shava would have mentioned at some point that... Well, actually not Shava. Advocate Tasir would have mentioned at some point that the erudite collective, the foremost scholars of the city, research and development geniuses, are working on a solution.
Okay.
And that all we need to do is wait for our best and brightest minds to figure out a way out of this.
Okay, but nothing about our group being part of that solution?
Not specifically, no.
Okay. That's fine then.
Mm-hmm. And that is, like, other than the pleas of, if not this, then what is our plan? And other than Ember's testimony, no other testimonies are offered in Shava's favor.
Elwyn will stand.
I think Shava would kind of, when no one is coming forward, she would kind of look to your direction and watch as you stand.
I think basically after Advocate Tasir finishes her rebuttal of Ember's testimony, Elwyn stands and goes to move toward the dwindling line, the front, the stage. I don't know.
And Shava kind of makes eye contact with you and gives a little bit of a nod.
She'll step up slowly and to the podium and turn, look out at the audience. And she will address everyone in Undercommon. You may not know me. I've come from a long way away. My name is Lady Elwyn of House Amelos. My house is responsible. We govern the Ministry of the Old Faith in Alvaria. It's the ministry in charge of religion. My father is the shepherd of the tundra, religious leader of the Circle of the Old Faith. He hoped that I would follow in his footsteps and also worship his gods, but I never made a connection. Before I was born, my parents tried for many decades to conceive a child. They weren't able to. And so my mother reached outside of our house and outside of my father's worship. She found a deity that would help her. A deity who gave her me. But because of this agreement that they had reached, she had to leave, and I've never met her. But from what I understand, worship of this deity and her loyalty to this deity is what brought her here to you. You may know her as Elentari the Wanderer.
There's a murmuring throughout the crowd from a few points. You can see some signs of recognition.
I don't know what deity she worshipped or what relationship they had or what powers that gave her, but I do know she did good work here. And I'd like to hear about her sometime. But that's not why I'm standing in front of you. I learned just over 2 years ago that because of my father's position as a religious leader and because of the deal struck with an unknown deity, they had to lie about my mother, and they told me that she died giving birth to me. And for over 100 years, that's the truth I knew. But if we had had the freedom to worship whatever deity we wanted, and we weren't restricted by the rules of our ministry, perhaps I might have known my mother. I agree with what Advocate DeVere said earlier about choice. It should be your choice to believe or not to believe. You shouldn't let anyone tell you that you can't worship a god. If you have that relationship, cherish it. When I left my home, I made a friend with the deity. And yes, the Mass Lady is a deity, and she gives me power. And she wants to help. And she's never asked anything of me. And I know that your relationship with the Weaver is strained, and I know that the history is bloodied and broken. But the Weaver also saved worship just the other day. And the Weaver wants to save you all, if you let her. She does not ask anything of you but your forgiveness. I know that you don't want to incur a debt, and I understand that because I also don't want that. And I know that your scholars and your inventors in ingenuity are extremely intelligent and capable. We've seen their work with our own eyes, but look at where we are. She gestures at the ceiling. We do not have time for invention. We don't have time to secure resources. We have to act. Unless you want everything you've built to go plummeting into the abyss. Because that's what will happen if you don't let us help you. This forum does not decide what you believe. It gives you the power to believe in what you want. And that's what we need to vote for today. So make your choice. And she'll get off the stage.
Okay. You don't need to make
clapping. All her hands. All of them.
You're the only one. I mean, the group of you are the only ones clapping. Everyone else is pretty silent. But you don't need to make a charisma check because that was persuasive. What you do need to make is an insight check, though.
Yes. Okay. I have advantage for any reason.
Not really.
Oh, I'm going to give you inspiration for that speech.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm cashing it in. Oh, much better. 29.
Yeah.
I'm shaking.
You look around at the people of the stadium, and those who were the most afraid and the most anxious, the ones who did come to offer whatever, support they could for Shava's arguments. The ones who made the pleas of, if not this, then what else? You see something in the eyes of those people. It's hope. It's a belief, but it's not a belief in a deity or anything like that. It's a belief in you and what you said just now. Those people are feeling very inspired because of you. And you look around at the rest of the people, those who up to this point have been undecided, or even those who were contrary to Shava's points. And you see some of them nodding as they consider what you say favorably. You think that was very effective.
Ellen just goes and sits back down next to Embers, and she clenches her fists in her lap extremely tight, and you can just see that her whole body is just shaking. But she tries not to let it show on her face. She's trying to keep that poised, noble.
Yeah. I think I just lean over. That was well said.
Thank you.
Charmer's just bawling. Just bawling.
Charmer,
She didn't know any of that. So
Yeah, well, I don't know if Embers knew much of that either.
Yeah. Charmer, are you sure you don't want to be a third supporter for Advocate Devere?
If I had more personal experience as you all have had, I'm sure I would jump at the chance. But in my life, I haven't seen it. I haven't seen evidence. So I just can't.
Fair.
It would be untrue to myself.
It's all right.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. Whatever will happen, will happen. And if they vote wrong, then it's up to us to fix it.
The time comes for the two advocates to enter their closing arguments. Advocate Tasir is offered the first opportunity, and she says, I must admit my relief at having been assigned to advocate for the Khan stance in this forum. It is not an easy thing to take a position so contrary to the culture, history, and virtues of one's people that have been held for generations upon generations, and for that alone, I applaud my opponent's efforts. Advocate Devere has debated with sound logic and solid arguments despite the task set before her. And yet, I ask you to look no further than my very form, and she gestures again towards, her lower half spider body.
Embers turns to Charm. I haven't stopped.
She's a very pretty individual. Anyways, I ask you to look no further than my very form for evidence that we cannot and must not put our faith in the divine. Our people left the sunshine of the surface world to blindly follow our goddess into the depths, and what did our devotion earn us but pain and suffering? Then, when we chose to follow her son in an attempt to flee from her web, she cursed us with these forms, and in the end, what was the reward for our new faith in Seldaphane? Betrayal and death at the very hands of the one we trusted to protect us. Time and time again, our history has proven that the only path to attaining our perfect selves is that of continuous improvement without relying on the divine. And so, it is with great conviction that I urge the jurist to see the wisdom in rejecting Advocate Devere's arguments. Erudition must weather these storm winds by her own virtues, for even if she should fall, that would still be preferable to opening herself up to divine betrayal once again. And that's met with some clapping, nods of approval from others, but less than before, certainly. Did the music just suddenly get louder for all of you? Was
No.
that just me?
Nope.
Yeah. just suddenly got louder for me for some reason. That was weird. Shava opens her mouth to begin her closing arguments, but at that very moment, there is a loud crack and a rumbling.
Oh no.
And you watch as near the ceiling of the stalactite, a big crack widens and begins to form.
Oh no.
Shava looks up at it. You hear gasps of worry and fear from people in the chamber, but Shava recenters herself, closes the book she was about to read from, steps out from in front of the podium, and speaks from the heart. I look into your eyes, people of erudition, and I see the same terror that grips my own heart. Erudition now stands on the brink of extinction with no recourse for salvation. I cannot refute all of the arguments that Advocate Desir made this day, but on one point I stand resolutely opposed. Advocate Desir claims that it would be better for erudition to fall than to open our hearts to the divine once again. And her point there is punctuated by another cracking as the crack begins to widen, and you can hear stones buffeting the stalactite from the outside. She goes on. If only it were that easy. If only we could allow ourselves to surrender to fear and embrace oblivion with peace, clinging to our pride and clutching our past wounds. But no. Today I call on erudition to choose the harder path, the one that leads to our survival. I will not surrender to fear on matters that happened in time that has long since passed out of living memory, and I plead for erudition to do the same. As a people, we value self-improvement, and I have seen the great things that we can accomplish when we put our minds and hearts together. Do our scientists shy from innovation merely because their experiments have failed in the past? No. The matriarchs of our past forbade worship of the divine to give us time to grow, but they would be ashamed to see erudition embrace her end, cowering, indecisive, and immobile as the fungi that cling to the cavern walls. I will not ask you to trust the gods. No. But I do ask you to put your faith in something else. Yourselves. The time to make a bold choice has come, erudition, and I urge you to look within yourselves and conquer the fears that paralyze our great city. And as she ends her speech, the crowd murmurs, stunned by the emotion, and the cracks widen again, and a chunk of the wall near the ceiling falls away, exposing a large part of the stalactite, the inside, to the outside winds that suddenly whip in, bringing stones with them, and people begin to, kind of scream and duck for cover.
I think Embers gets up and starts, at least trying to eliminate some of these stones the way that she practiced.
Yeah. Roll an attack.
Okay.
Oh boy.
18.
18. Some of the bigger stones that come flying in, your radiant bolts shoot out across the arena and break them into pieces, and you can see that they are some of them were coming very close to striking people, but you managed to shatter them and protect a few of the people who are trying to duck for cover at the moment.
How big is the hole?
It is
Huge?
It is large, and it is going to be widening.
Is it 10 feet across? Or less?
At its narrowest point, yeah, probably. It's about 10 feet across.
But not at its widest
It
point.
widens a bit up towards the top.
What are you thinking, Charm?
I'm thinking I'm thinking it might not be strong enough to hold, and we better get these people out of here. What I can do.
Then let's start doing it.
It's gonna get bigger.
Shava comes running to the group of you in the chaos.
Did that count as a short rest?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Did we just have a long rest?
Well, I needed my wild shapes back.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Shava comes running to you in the chaos, Elwyn. And she kind of shouts over the wind. Elwyn, if there's anything you can do, this would be the time to show the people exactly what sort of thing their decision could allow us to do. I know that my faith isn't much, but I believe in you and the powers that you have, and I might be able to rally the people of the city to at least put their faith in you. I think that might help.
Just make sure everyone is protected. I'll see what I can do. And I'll just run in the opposite direction of everyone else. It's fleeing. I run into the fray.
Yeah. The group of you see Shava begins to like dart off and kind of rally people. She grabs, members of the Stoic Sentinels because they have that armor and they have shields and things like that. And she gets them to sort of form kind of like a protective barrier for people who are fleeing to kind of like keep some of the rocks and winds off.
I am going to cast Spider Climb on myself and start making my way up toward the hole in the ceiling.
Okay, yeah. You cast the spell on yourself and you can feel the power surge into you. And you basically make the transition from horizontal ground to vertical ground as you begin running up the wall.
And as I'm running, I'm kind of muttering quietly, not to anyone in the room, but I'm just saying, all right, Weaver, I made your case. Now you got to show them what you can do, or they're never gonna let you help. And I'll get up to the roof and I will take the staff and I will try to channel her power to knit the hole closed and try to fill all the cracks if I can.
Okay.
With webbing or with whatever. Just caulk that shit as much as possible.
You begin to channel that miraculous power. And in the back of your head, you hear a little bit of a response. The Weaver says, "The people of this city believe in you. They don't need to believe in me. Their power will give us what we need to accomplish this." And
show me how to do it.
Yeah, you feel that rush of power from outside of you again. And if it weren't so windy in here, all of you would probably feel like a vacuum begin to form as that power kind of rushes into Elwyn. And you watch as almost like webs forged of stone, strands of rock begin to form out of the rift, that had been torn into the side of the stalactite and begin to flow towards each other. And it begins to knit back, and there's a grinding as the disparate sides of this thing are pulling towards each other. But you can see that after the initial connection, there's still gaps and holes in between. And Embers, as you're helping get people out of here, Charm as well, you find yourself next to Shava again, and Shava is looking up at Elwyn with, she's got like the anime shaking eyes. right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She's looking up at Elwyn with that expression.
The
but then
star
yeah.
peoples.
she shakes her head and says, it's not going to be enough. Ember's charmed the people of the city. We need to channel their faith to Elwyn. Can you help me rally them?
Probably not, but I'll try.
Try.
Okay.
We just need to try.
I'm gonna go find. I mean, I'm sure it's not hard to find, but Advocate Seer.
To see her? Yep.
Yeah. And make my case directly to her, because it's like, listen, I'm no good at talking to people, but you have people on your side. We need people to believe in what's happening here now. Will you help us?
Yeah, she was in the process of trying to get out of this chamber herself, and she actually has an advantage that other people don't have. She's able to kind of climb up on walls and surfaces to get around people. So she was actually making good progress towards the exit by the time you zoom and catch up with her. And you stop her. And she looks at you with these eyes that you can see are, yeah, there's fear and terror here as well, despite what she said. Make a persuasion check at advantage.
Okay. Oh, I'm nervous. Okay, I'm glad I had that advantage because one was a natural one.
Ooh.
And then the other one was, counting my -2, a 10.
She
The best I got. Sorry, Alwyn, you know I can't do this.
And
Yeah.
I know.
She looks at you, and then she looks back at Elwyn, and Elwyn, you are basically being buffeted by the winds. She sees Elwyn kind of standing there alone against the winds and rocks. She hears your plea, and she kind of shakes her head and says, I can't ask them to open themselves up to... I just can't, but...
Will you at least?
What do you need from me? What?
Just believe in her.
She looks back again at Elwyn, and she says, in her I could believe. And she goes to begin talking to some of the other people who are fleeing, kind of gesturing to them, pointing to Elwyn. Charm, do you do anything?
Will you allow Charm to open like a telepathic channel to as many people as she can reach? I don't know how many you can talk to at once.
I mean, theoretically,
Like a
it's everyone
loudspeaker.
within like your 120 feet, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, sure.
Okay. Okay. People of Independence, please. I know you're scared. Look at this amazing creature you have working to save you. She needs your help. Believe in her. Give her energy. She needs your energy and your good thoughts. You don't have to believe in a god right now, but believe in her. Look, fill the gaps. Protect yourself. Work together. Now.
Roll a persuasion check at advantage.
Save the world. I need help.
We are the world. We are the children. I got a 7 and a 10 plus. What's persuasion? Oh no, it's a 9!
That's you at a minus
Our
one.
two most persuasive members of the party are the ones that have to do all the persuading.
That's okay.
I didn't even have to roll.
I thought Charm had better charm than that. I don't know why.
You know, I have great survival and stealth, but persuasion is -1.
I think the name was just so misleading.
Mm-hmm.
For my bees.
You do see some people kind of stop and halt in their attempts to flee. They look back at Elwyn, and then they kind of hunker down where they are in groups, and you see that they are just kind of focusing intently on her, and that you can see that they're kind of muttering to each other. Not really prayers, but it worked for some. You didn't maybe affect as many as you wanted to.
Maybe it's enough.
Shava gets up and shouts to the people. Just one last attempt at getting Elwyn some support. What would she say? Erudition, I begged you to put your faith in yourselves, to put your faith in your own choices. Here we have a woman, not from our city, but fighting desperately to save it. And she needs your help. With your belief, with your support, we will get through this. And Shava just makes that one last plea. Rolled a 10 and a 7 on dice, but she does have a she does have a positive bonus.
Exactly the same. Weird.
Elwyn, you feel the power that is channeling through you increase. Maybe not by a lot, but by some. And you're straining to get these webs of stone to knit back together. All the while you're being buffeted by wind and stone yourself. Can you make a Constitution saving throw?
Oh boy. I'm not good at these. Oh god. Okay. All right. Is it just a straight roll?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I think I have to use one of the big ones, you guys. 14.
14. Okay. Half of that. You take 19 points of bludgeoning damage
Holy
as
moly.
you stand there taking the full force of these winds and rocks. But the power that is surging through you grows with every wound, with every rock that strikes you, that you withstand and remain resolute in your position. And slowly but surely, the webs of stone knit the edge of the stalactite back together. It's not a perfect meld. There are still gaps that wind and small rocks are rushing through. But it's enough that the big rocks stop hurling through the chamber. The winds die down to a significant amount. And for the moment, the stalactite is saved.
Yes!
And that's where we'll end tonight's session, I think.
Marking a level of exhaustion for using the minor miracle.
So yeah. Thank
man.
you to the group of you for playing. Thanks to anyone who came to watch. We'll be back with more of this Monday, 7 p.m. Pacific time. It's almost time to go to a Nexus.
Oh
Yeah.
boy.
Woo!
Yeah, we'll be back. Hope to see you then. Bye.
See you next
Bye.
time.
Night.
Uh.